Hello and welcome to the Diary of a Sensitive Soul podcast, where together we learn to embrace our sensitivity and learn to see it as a superpower. My name is Anna, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to navigate relationships as a highly sensitive person in a non-highly sensitive person world. So as we spoke in the previous episode, only about 20% of the entire world can be considered as highly sensitive people. So it does definitely put us as a minority. If you have not heard that episode yet, please go and check it out. I'll put a link to it in this episode. But kind of to continue off from that, today we're going to talk about how to build really meaningful, impactful, beautiful relationships in a world where the majority of people are not going to be like us and are not going to have the same sensibilities as us. I think to preface this topic, we need to speak about what actually a highly sensitive person thinks about, or what is their general take on relationships. And to kind of sum it up, I would say that, highly sensitive people, they certainly need their time alone and they need their time to unwind, to be able to really stay within their inner space. However, at the same time, what really makes a life of a highly sensitive person colorful and beautiful, and what adds that zest and that excitement to a highly sensitive person's life, is having and building meaningful relationships. So it does seem a bit like a paradox. I think the bottom line is that a highly sensitive person, first and foremost, and most importantly, will seek for a relationship, or out of a relationship, feeling appreciated, feeling understood, and really appreciated for who they truly are. And isn't that, at the end of the day, what we all want, right? Another thing I think is really important to preface here is that before we jump into any kind of relationship, whether that be a friendship or a romantic relationship, and we'll be covering both of those in this episode, is to start from a place of self-love. I think any relationship, no matter how good the other person is, how good we are, can turn unhealthy if we don't put our self-care and our own value and love towards ourselves on the first place. If we, as a highly sensitive person, or any person in general, don't know our true value and don't see what we bring to the table, at the end of the day, other people can very easily misuse that, and we can just become wrapped up in this cycle of seeking validation from people, losing ourselves further, not being able to set healthy boundaries, not being able to protect ourselves when that is necessary. So I think any relationship, before we jump into any relationship at all, we must come from a place of knowing what I'm worth, knowing what value I have, and then we can branch out and we can start building healthy relationship that will actually bring value to our life. So maybe it's a bit unfortunate, but when we are out on the street or when we're in a social setting and there's people around us, unfortunately, it's not like the Sims game where above their heads we can just see, some symbol telling us what kind of person they are. Oh, this person is an highly sensitive person. Oh, this person is kind. Oh, this person's not good. Let's not go near to him. Unfortunately, that's not the case. As for any person navigating this world, trying to find people that they can connect with and build relationships with, there is going to be trial and error also for highly sensitive people when they're navigating that world. Unfortunately, that's not something that can be bypassed or something that can be avoided. It's just something that will happen. I think as highly sensitive people, or in general, when we are part of any kind of social group or social construct that puts us in the minority of the population, it can tend to happen that we develop this sort of us versus them mentality. And I don't think that's always a good thing. I think if you, as a highly sensitive person, start approaching any person or any potential relationship from a lens of, okay, let me see if you are a highly sensitive person, or let me see if you're going to be a good match for me, a highly sensitive person, it can very easily complicate this whole process of trying to find people we connect with. And also I think, an unnecessary layer that we are better off without. I do think sometimes it's good to kind of have that distinguishment. Is that a word? Distinguishment? Distinguishing? But in general, I think we should try and avoid having that us versus them mentality. I think it's a more healthy mindset to come from if we see, okay, we are one people, we are one humanity, we are all having similar experiences as people, as humans. And I think that will naturally help us to see more similarities with people around us, regardless of whether they're a highly sensitive person or not. I would like to go over some kind of main points, some bullet points that we can try and keep in mind and apply to our life whenever we are approaching this topic of building connections, building relationships as highly sensitive people. I think the first, and I would argue most important point, is to let go of societal expectations of what relationships in your life should look like. When I say that, I mean, think back to when you were in high school, in middle school. What is the ideal friendship dynamic like? Well, either you're popular and you have a ton of friends and everybody likes you, everyone wants to hang out with you, or you're part of the popular clique, right? You have a friend who is really close to you, maybe your best friend who is super popular, so you are associated with them, and then because of that, everybody likes you. The reality is, as a highly sensitive person, that kind of scenario and that kind of dynamic most likely is going to not feel good and is not going to be something that will just bring you joy when you approach relationships. Being around a ton of people, constantly being approached, it can get very exhausting and very draining for a highly sensitive person. So that is just probably not going to work for you. The alternative is, again, to have a really close circle of friends. And these are the people that you should keep close to you. And yes, most likely that number is not going to exceed, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 people, maybe 8 people. It is going to be a smaller circle than someone who is not highly sensitive, than someone who is not an introvert and much more on the extroverted side. But that is what's going to ultimately work for you and bring more joy to your life. And I think at the end of the day, what are we here for? We are here to live a happy life, a fulfilling life, and to experience experiences that will make us happy. So that is what you need to be focusing on, rather than, oh, what will the society think of me? Oh, people will look at me weird. How come she doesn't have many friends? How come he doesn't have a different friend to hang out with every single day of the week? That's just not important. You're not here on this earth to please other people. You're here to have a fulfilling, happy, good life. The second point I want to also add is that you will have to be picky when it comes to having friends. You should have standards for who you consider a friend. Not everybody who just says hi to you and gives you a piece of chocolate is your friend. And that's okay. I mean, that just means that you know your value and you know that not everybody just deserves the right to be friends with you and call you a friend. Again, because highly sensitive people tend to get drained a little bit easier from social interactions than non-highly sensitive people, you want to invest it more wisely. I mean, if you imagine there's a person next to you who has a 5-liter jug with them, and then there's you with 1 liter. That 5-liter owning person can give it to 5 different people, whereas you just have 1. So that means you can only invest into 1 person. And I think sometimes as highly sensitive people, we can fall into this train of thought, oh, why am I like this? Why can't I just be less sensitive? Why can't I be like Joe, who is just, perfectly okay having surface level interactions, doesn't need it to be so deep all the time, who is just okay going on with their life, not caring that much? I think as a highly sensitive person, most of us, if not all of us, have thought this. And I just want you, if you have ever had this thought, if you are thinking this thought now, I just want you to collect it and just throw it into the trash. Because if we're going to sit here thinking that, I mean, every single person could think that. If they're not a highly sensitive person, they might be thinking, oh, why am I not famous? Why am I not more rich? Other people might be thinking, oh, why can't I have, a better family? Oh, why can't I find someone who will love me? Everyone has something they're lacking in their life. And if we just sit there spending energy thinking about what we don't have or what we are not, that's just such a waste of time. So rather than thinking that way, let's see, okay, this is my reality. I am a highly sensitive person. Are you going to change that? No. So let's learn how to work with it and how to build a life taking that into consideration to create a life that will really bring you joy and that will really make you feel like it's a life worth living. I think also it's important to learn to discern when is it time to end a relationship. I'm sure that most of us have had experiences or certain relationships where it starts off really good and then something goes sour. And we just maybe see a certain part of that person that we didn't see before that makes us realize that, okay, this is not going to be a healthy relationship for me. Or maybe just the dynamic is not working out. And, there's the sunken cost fallacy, which basically, in simple terms, means that once we invest effort and time into something, we are that much less likely to let go of it because we feel like, well, I already invested all of this. I don't want to feel like I just wasted my time, that I wasted my energy. It would feel like a loss. So I'll rather just keep on to it and hope that things work out. That can become a very dangerous situation to be in. So I think it's important to be able to kind of analyze your relationships from an objective and a sober lens and see, okay, is this relationship really helping me or bringing something to me in my life? Or am I just going to hold on to it because I just don't want to feel like I wasted time? Think about it. If you keep holding on to something which is not good, which is making your life worse in some way, which is adding negativity to your life, which is not benefiting your life in any way, you are keeping that door closed for someone else who might come in and really transform your life and make your life that much more beautiful. So holding on to something negative, it's not just, well, okay, at least nothing changes. No, in reality, you are not letting something better enter your life. Just keep that in mind that, yes, in the beginning, it will probably not feel very nice if you have to let go of a relationship, but at the end of the day, you're opening the door for someone better to come in. I've also organized into 4 different categories certain types of people that I think you should be on the lookout for. If you are a highly sensitive person and you're either, evaluating the relationships you currently have in your life, or you're thinking about potentially entering a friendship or relationship with a different new person, these are signs to look out for. So the first one is the judge. So what is the judge? The judge is someone who is going to basically, as the name says, judge you. They're going to make you feel like you're wrong for being the way that you are. They're going to judge some of your choices. They're going to make you feel like, oh, you shouldn't be so sensitive. Oh, why are you being like this? Oh, why can't you just be more outgoing? People who are not going to accept you, people who are going to want in some way to change you, or at least not like just who you are as a person. That's the first one to look out for. If you see these traits early on in a person, just say goodbye. The second one, the abuser. So what is the abuser? As a highly sensitive person, you are going to need time alone, time to retreat into yourself, into your personal private space, to recharge your social batteries, just your batteries in general. If there are people who are going to abuse these boundaries that you set, if there are going to be people who are just not going to respect the fact that you need your personal time, or just anything else in general, if they're not going to respect what you tell them, also not a person you should have in your life, no matter how great they are otherwise. The third one, the superficial. So again, pretty self-explanatory, as the name suggests, a person who is incapable of having deep conversations. I think everybody is capable, but just some people either don't want to, or they're just not used to it and they'll think of it as weird, or it's just not something they're interested in. And again, that is okay. Nothing is wrong with you for wanting to have deep, meaningful conversations, connections, relationships. Just not everybody is going to be like that. And that's okay. It just means that person is not for you. And finally, the fourth one, the blind. So what is the blind? The blind is someone who is just going to make you feel not seen ever. It's someone who is going to perhaps not have that good emotional intelligence, or also is just going to, again, along the same lines of the judge, is just going to want to change you and not see you nor accept you for who you are, but rather want to see a version of you which doesn't exist. I think that as highly sensitive people, as we go through life and we encounter certain relationships that, we were hopeful about and then didn't work out, and we had to go through the pain of ending that relationship and then feeling like we invested time and energy and emotions into a person that didn't pay off, it can make us jaded over time. And I think it's important to still keep an open mind despite all of these experiences. I know that they were difficult and I know that they were hard, but just like how if we get out of a relationship with someone who cheated on us and we go into the next relationship, as much as possible, we want to avoid putting that label of cheater on this new person, because just because one person cheated on us doesn't mean that everybody else will. So we want to avoid putting these negative preconceived notions on people that we still haven't given a chance to because of something that happened to us in the past. So I think it's very important to approach every person, every potential connection and relationship with an open mind, but not being too hopeful, if that makes sense. So you don't want to go into every single potential relationship hoping or thinking, okay, this is now going to become my new best friend. This is going to be a person I'm going to get along with so well, because you just don't know that. And I think it's good to manage your expectations. So go into it with an open mind, but don't be too hopeful, because then you can just feel disappointed more if things don't work out. Figuring out if someone is a keeper and if someone is a good match for us will take some time. There's just no way around it. But I would like to outline some early signs that you can see in a person's behavior, in a person's actions, that can be a good guide for you as to whether to keep investing and keep, exploring this potential relationship with them, or if it's perhaps not worth to keep investing, because early on you can see signs that things are not going to really end well or work out. So the first one is you feel seen and heard when you are with them, when you speak with them. I think this is so important because as highly sensitive people, it's not just that we feel misunderstood, we literally are misunderstood by a lot of people. Because for people who don't have that same level of depth and that same level of sensitivity to things, they are just not going to understand it. That's the reality. That does not mean that they can't understand it after you explain it to them. But from the beginning, unless they've had prior experiences with highly sensitive people, they're most likely not going to understand. So as a highly sensitive person, I think it's that much more important for us to feel like we are seen and understood and heard in a relationship. Another really green flag for a highly sensitive person, you will feel like you can be exactly who you are, and you will not feel the need to have to pretend to be someone you're not. I think there are some people that we just subconsciously can feel like, okay, if I show them my true self, if I just, let go and I just really am fully myself, they're not going to like it or they're not going to accept it. And I think that's a big indicator for you because, again, you should be around people who accept you for who you are, and you should not feel ever the need to change who you are to please someone. So if you feel that you can really be authentically yourself, that's a really good sign. Another really good sign is that after a conversation with this person, you feel positive and you feel fulfilled. So that feeling after you have a really deep, meaningful conversation where both of you are exchanging these meaningful insights, and even you feel like, wow, I never thought of this. This is incredible. And you just feel like, you see the world in a little bit different way. Those are exactly the type of conversations that make highly sensitive people thrive. So if you end up having such a conversation with someone, that is definitely a person you want to keep in your life. And finally, you feel respected and you feel considered. So this can apply to basically anything, whether it's your boundaries, whether it's the fact that, you feel that the person considers you. So let's say if, you had a number of different interactions and they've kind of learned, a little bit about the fact that you are more on the sensitive side, they're not just going to, tell you or call you up and say, hey, I'm going out to this club with like a bajillion people there, come hang out. They're going to consider your sensibilities and try to pick out a place for you both to go that will fit both of you, that will not just be something they want and you can just tag along, but they're going to show consideration for who you are in their decisions. So this next section I have dedicated specifically to romantic relationships. Despite the fact that a lot of the points and things we've spoken about before this can be applied to both friendships as well as romantic relationships and family relationships, I do think that it deserves its own little section here. In terms of romantic relationships, when you're picking out a potential partner to be with, first of all, think of the fact that this is the person who is going to be the closest person to you. Once you grow up, your parents are no longer going to be the closest people in your life. It's going to be your life partner. So you need to be that much more selective about who you choose for this, because they will be in your personal space most of the time, all of the time. And you want to make sure that that someone is not going to consistently drain you, make your life worse, make your life not as good as it can be. So here are some characteristics that, as a highly sensitive person, you should try and look for in a potential partner. So the first one, already mentioned in the previous part, but still going to emphasize it once again. This person should make you feel seen, heard, and accepted unconditionally. You know that feeling when you are with a person and you are maybe feeling something, or let's say you're upset and you don't really know why. And then that person somehow knows why you're upset before you have figured it out. I think any person who experiences that will feel so thankful and so grateful and blessed to have such a person in their life. Someone who can see them and understand them sometimes even better than we ourselves can. I think that's really such a beautiful quality that a person can have, and that just fundamentally shows how much they really understand you. And again, as a highly sensitive person, understanding is invaluable. Not everybody in this world is going to understand you. That's just how it is. But make sure that that one person who is the closest person to you in your life does. Second characteristic, your partner should be a good listener. Why? Because again, in order to reach that understanding, in order for your possibly non-highly sensitive partner to understand your sensibilities, to understand you and how you operate, you need to be able to express it and explain it to them. And of course, there is a big portion of that on you. You need to learn the language to express and to describe who you are and how you work. But a big part of that is also on them to listen. I think it's also about, I know for me that if I am there speaking to a person, if I'm being vulnerable, shedding light on who I am as a person, which is something personal, and the person is looking at their phone, looking around the room, thinking about something else, interrupting me, I immediately don't want to talk anymore. Because in my mind, why am I going to sit here and put effort to explain to you something that you clearly don't care to listen about? So it's not just about listening. You can listen while appear to not listen. So find someone who is going to be a good listener, who is going to make you feel like they actually listen to you, because that will motivate you to open up more and to express about yourself more, and in turn help them to understand you so that you can feel understood. Your partner also needs to be patient. Why? Because we as highly sensitive people sometimes will require more time to adjust to things. We will sometimes require more time to make decisions, to get ready for a change. We might move on from things slower than other people. So if your partner is super impatient and just cannot wait for you to, get your act together, well, then I think it will be difficult. Again, this was also mentioned previously, but I do want to emphasize it once again. Your partner should be someone who respects your boundaries. So if you say, hey, I need some time to be by myself right now, they should be able to respect that. Of course, there's lots of nuances there. It can be that if you tell your partner, hey, I need some time alone, it can trigger some insecurities in them. They can start to think, oh my, what am I doing wrong? Why does he or why does she need time away from me? That's where communication comes in. And in any relationship, communication is so important. But you do need to communicate very clearly to your partner that, hey, this is not because of you. I just need my space to recharge. I love you still. Nothing has changed. Nothing is wrong. It's just I need this time for myself. Please respect that. And if that's communicated clearly in such a way, your partner should be able to respect that without any issues and give you the time that you need. Now, as a highly sensitive person, as we've already mentioned, you need to be able to have meaningful, deep conversations. So your partner needs to be someone who also can have deep, meaningful conversations. But I think beyond that, they also need to be able to offer to you insights that you might not have had. What I mean by that is that if you start speaking about a deep topic, there are many people who will be able to speak about it. Let's say, I don't know, you start speaking about the meaning of human existence, right? I'm sure that majority of the people would not say to you like, oh no, stop it, I don't want to talk about this. They would probably reciprocate, they would probably join in the conversation with you. But the question is, are they going to add some insights and kind of reflect that deep meaningfulness to you? Or are they just going to kind of agree with you or just be like, yeah, sure, sounds great, yeah, You see the difference. To really have deep, meaningful discussions as a highly sensitive person, it's not just about you speaking into a wall and that wall absorbing it. It's about back and forth. It's about that reciprocal conversation. So find someone who, I'm not saying, certainly it's not the case that if you are a highly sensitive person, you need to be in a relationship, in a marriage with someone who is highly sensitive. It's just about the capacity of that person. It can happen that in the beginning, perhaps they're not used to it. My husband is like this. My husband is not naturally used to having deep, meaningful conversations, but he is capable of that. And I think a lot of people are. It's just that they might not be used to it. So it's all about just communicating, trial and error, and seeing if that person is really capable of that. Then, of course, again, someone who considers you, someone who, I think especially in a romantic relationship, this is so important, and I think it's something you can see pretty early on. Consideration can look, I would say, in two different ways. First way is that they're going to make a plan in which they already have considered your sensibilities and what they know you're comfortable with, so that when they do bring you that offer, okay, let's go here, you will feel like, okay, that's something I'm comfortable with. I can see that they took that into consideration. And the second way how that can look is they make a plan and then they ask you, I was thinking we can do this. What do you think? Are you comfortable with that? Do you like that? Or do you want to do something else? Consideration can appear in different ways, but it's definitely something you want to see. If a person is just going to choose what they want, I mean, you don't need to be in a relationship with them. This next one, I think, again, it comes with some nuance as well, but I would say your partner should be someone who is on the calm side. So essentially what I mean by that is don't get into a relationship with someone who has anger issues or is aggressive. As highly sensitive people, we are much more sensitive to stimuli. That includes screaming, that includes raised voices, really kind of intense changes in emotions, really negative emotions. Of course, there will be arguments and there will be fights in your relationship. That's inevitable. But you want someone who is able to navigate an argument or navigate a disagreement in a calm manner. Find someone who is able to stay collected and who is able to control their emotions and their anger. I think ultimately, and the last thing I want to end on, is whatever relationship it is, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a family member, a romantic relationship, you want to find someone who is going to accept you for who you are and going to see your presence in their life as a gift and as a source of gratitude. You don't want to spend your life with someone who is going to want to change you, who is going to want for you to be someone you're not, or who is going to just tolerate you. Like, yeah, okay, you're sensitive. I don't like it, but I guess it's fine. No, you deserve someone who is going to see your sensitivity and say, wow, I am so thankful I have a person like this in my life. That's the only thing you should accept, and you should never, ever settle for anything else. I know that many times we can have insecurities and we can feel like, oh, this is making me emotional. Sorry. Oh, this is... Okay, we're not crying anymore. Sorry about that. But yes, many times we can feel insecure and we can ask ourselves, why can't I be more normal? Why can't I be more like other people? Why is it harder for me to find someone who will just love me and accept me and appreciate me fully? But there are people who are going to do those things out there for you, and you should not settle for someone less. And if you see that they are not doing those things, they're not accepting you, then they don't deserve to be in your life. And that door deserves to stay open for someone who will. If right now, listening to this, you can think of some people in your life that you just know they're not giving you the things that you need. They are either judging you or they're making you feel negative. They're making your life harder. I know that it's hard, but end that relationship and cut your losses and move on. Yes, it's harder to do than to say, but that's life, Relationships, many of them will not work out, but the most important person in your life is you, and that's who you gotta look out for. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you have experience of ending a relationship that didn't work out. How did you recognize that relationship was not fruitful or worth it for you? And what happened after? And I will see you in the next episode. Bye. So a leader.